Well, Mark, everyone's counting down the games, so to speak, and studying tables and looking at fixture lists. Are you feeling the pressure personally as well?
I suppose it's well, yes is the answer. I mean, in terms of you can't not feel the pressure. One of the advantages I've got is that yes, I've played, so I understand exactly what's going on in the players' minds and in the dressing room. Two, I guess I spent all of my life, because I worked in turnaround and insolvency, in crisis situations, and what you learn to do, and this is partly what I was trying to say in the message that I put out, what you learn to do is to seal off the particular situation from the next one, otherwise you get submerged. And if you're dealing with sports psychologists, I mean, they'll tell you really all they're talking about is saying, look, I take a shot, it shouldn't contaminate the next shot. There's no logical reason why it should, but it's difficult because human nature comes in. So for me, that's the way I've spent most of my business life. And so yeah, I may look to people as though I don't feel the pressure. I feel the pressure more than anybody. I mean, I was one of the 7,000 that turned up here for the game against Exeter. Ironically, it would have been my last game in a 2-year contract that turned down with Exeter. And Johnny King had asked me to, well, he was trying to find me to get me to play because they were so short of players. But I turned up for that game, and I remember that, and just as everybody else did, we remember that game. And so yes, the pressure's there, and hopefully we can turn that pressure to advantage and get people out to come and support the league club.
And I suppose that pressure is there because people perhaps fear about what may be around the corner or what could potentially happen. But how important is it to concentrate on what is between now and the end of the season?
Well, it's desperately important, because I think that if you worry about it, there's no doubt that guys are up for a game every game, but if you can get over the top in terms of the pressure you put on yourself, then it starts to hit your skills, it hits you won't show for the ball and so forth, and all that kind of stuff comes in, so you just make it worse. The reality is nobody's under any illusion as to the importance, but it shouldn't make the job harder, and that's what we're trying to say. There are 8 games left, there are 8 fights, and are they up for the fight? Yes, they are. Do we want to make it as hard as possible for the opposition? Yes, we do. And we've got 4 home games, so we've got 8 games left. We've got 4 home games, and so the fans and the people of Wirral can play their part in those 4 home games. And we have to look at it. If one goes badly for us, that doesn't mean to say the next one is. We just have to leave it behind and get on with it, much as people have to do in life.
So you've issued your rally and war cry for everybody to stick together. How difficult was it a decision to make to come to that, and how important is it that everybody does stick together?
It was actually quite difficult because it's not my style. I'm a chartered accountant trained, and it isn't something in the sort of the bag of tools that a chartered accountant does, which is to issue war cries every so often. And so as a consequence, it was something that you had to think about. The easy thing to do, and I wouldn't have been playing my full part if I just stayed silent on this and said, over to you, Mickey, over to you and the lads. You and the lads can get on with it, and we've done the best that we can, we've provided the players. So from that perspective, it was me saying, well, actually, this is a little bit more that I can do, because it needed to be said. And I think that there is a part that the fans can play. I know that it can appear cheesy to some people, but let me say this: the easy thing to do in this situation is to sit on the sidelines, moan and gripe and snipe. The hard thing to do is to put that back for another time when we learn the lessons from the season, and actually get behind the team for the 90 minutes and really push on. And if it still goes badly, you go again. I hate to use analogies that are war analogies, because to some extent, it sort of detracts from what I really feel about the good job that our armed services do. But this is a time when it's about who are the people you have in the trenches with you, because they're the people who you'd want to be there with you. And my experience of Merseyside generally, certainly when I was working up here with workforces, when I was working on insolvencies, etc., they were the best in the country. If you could actually get them aligned with what you were trying to do in difficult circumstances, they were fantastic. And if I'm going to be in the trench with some people, I think it's the people here.
Obviously, you've put a lot of personal time, effort and money into Tranmere Rovers, and things haven't quite gone according to plan this season. How difficult is it to juggle the business Mark Palios and the personal feelings of Mark Palios when it comes to making decisions for the club?
I actually don't think it's that difficult, because they are aligned. In other words, if you've got a business, you do the best for the business. If you've got a club that you support, you do the best for the club. So there's an alignment there that doesn't give me any problems whatsoever. In terms of the business issues that the club faces, it hasn't gone well on the park, and that has deflected a little bit from what we wanted to do. And if you've asked me, I would say we're probably 2 or 3 months behind where I'd want to be. But without giving you the detail around that, bore you to death. But so yes, the position on the park has caused me to do various things that I wouldn't otherwise do. So otherwise I would have gotten things. In terms of if I hadn't, I wouldn't be practicing what I preach, because I'm saying to people now, look, put behind you what's gone, and just get on with it and do what you need to do. And I actually think that it's better for people to have said at least we tried than not to have tried at all. And as a consequence, I think that where we are is not where I'd want to be. I think the fans deserve a lot more than they've got at this point in time. But we've got 8 games to go, and then we'll go again. And that's the thing. It's all about going again. It's the big thing for me. It doesn't matter in life what happens to you, it's how you respond. And that's what I'm saying now. We have 8 games left. How are we going to respond to the situation we're in?
In your time as a player, how much of a difference did it make when you had the crowd fired up and behind you?
Well, it makes a massive difference to players. It's as simple as that. And people talk about the 12th man, and whilst that can again appear sort of rather hackneyed as a phrase, it's very true. And yes, you can get the situation whereby the pressure from the crowd gets to you as a player, but actually I think if they're behind you, you will go that extra mile. And that's why the away travelling support at Tranmere this year has been fantastic. And when you see that sometimes, you know that when you've gone and you're playing in a hostile stadium and you've got the guys who've travelled there, and you get to know them, because it's not a massive travelling set of fans that we have at Tranmere, and it matters to the players. It really matters.
Are you confident? I mean, you said before about the analogy of the war analogy. Are you confident that you've got the soldiers, if you like, to win this battle over the next 6 weeks?
Yes, I am. I think that we've got some good players in the side, some very good players in the side. And if you look at the last 2 games, and whilst I'm not here to do the analysis that the manager would do, etc., I would say that I saw the game down at Cambridge, and I went down specifically. I don't normally go down to the dressing room and the pitch, whatever. I went down afterwards, and you could see by the response of the players that actually it wasn't just the fact that they'd won. It was something that really meant that meant something to them. The way that they'd won, the fact that they dug in, the fact that they carried on. After the game here on Saturday, I keep saying that if I hadn't come to the game, I'd have been really disappointed. But I came to the game, and it's small margins, and we all know what happened at the game, that we actually could have won. And you've seen Floyd Hasselbank in the press saying just that.
If the inevitable did happen at the end of the season, how much of a setback would that be to the long-term plan of the club?
I just test the premise of your question. If the inevitable did happen, it's not the inevitable. If what we don't want to happen happens, in terms of the club, we go again. It's the same thing. You just have to address the situation that you've got in front of you. You go again. It's not the greatest of pictures financially, and would I not want it to happen? Of course not. But other clubs have gone through and have survived once they've gone into the conference, etc. And it just makes it all the more important to do the stuff that we need to do in any event off the pitch. So we just have to do it in different circumstances.
And if I may, just one more question from myself. From a personal viewpoint then, is there anything that you feel you could have done differently over the course of the season or over the last couple of months that might have changed things?
Look, I think that's one of those difficult things in terms of hindsight. Hindsight, is a wonderful thing, and whenever anybody asks you a question of hindsight, you say, based on the information you knew at the time, would you still do the same thing? And then based on the information that you've actually got now, having seen history pan out, would you do things differently? So hindsight's one of those difficult questions. But by and large, I think principally we tried to do what we needed to do. I think I've always said that the die was cast for this season. I'm not disowning it as my responsibility. I'm just saying the die was cast, and that's something I recognised when we came in. So we looked at getting this job turned around within a 2-year period. and that's certainly sort of, we're still there in terms of what we think we can do. And that's turning it round off the pitch. What we needed to do was to ensure survival. It's not a great rallying cry, or it's not. There we go again. It's not a great message to people when you come in and say our ambition is survival. And so we never said that. But in our heart of hearts, we knew that was a potential possibility, and you just have to accept that. You know, if you've got the momentum in the club going down, you've got a massive change of personnel in the first team squad. You've got a smaller budget than you should have for this league. You've got a new manager who's not experienced it before. When you add it all together, there are massive risks around that, and so we were alert to that, and we tried to cover that off. Which, just to recap, was to get a manager who could come in, stop the gap appearing, and give us the chance to get to the transfer window, and we put aside the funds to make sure that we could do in the transfer window that which we needed to do. Not ideal, because you're actually shopping in the window and doing your pre-season in mid-season, you know, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that's not the best time to do it. So we are where we are, but as I say, we've got 8 games left. It's not over. It's not inevitable. If you look at the bookies and they don't lose a lot of cash, we're not favourites to go down.
What's your reading of the situation, Matt, just at the bottom of the table from a purely kind of footballing point of view?
I think it's still in our hands, and that is the position that I'd want it to be. And that's why, if it's in your hands, then the logic is you focus on what you can do. You focus on the 8 games, and whatever happens with the others, it's what we do. So if you then look at the other sides, it's amazingly inconsistent, this league, and people have a little run and then have a dip in form. So well, my view is we don't focus on what the opposition are doing. We just know what we have to do, and we have very clearly in front of us 8 fights mapped out, and we'll fight each one of those fights.